Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back to PokePal. So today I'm going to be showing you my Skull Servant Lightsworn deck profile. Now this is another deck profile, but a little bit more expensive than the last two I've made. The main deck's going to run you around 35-40 bucks, the extra deck's going to run you around another 30. I did take out Whitemare from here, because Whitemare does cost around $7 a card, so that did reduce the price quite a bit. That would add about another 20 on there. Of course you could add that tech if you want. You could even add stuff like Ash and other stuff to this deck to make it go from a $30 deck to like a $150 deck. But that isn't the purpose of this deck, and that isn't the purpose of this video. This is a budget deck that's meant to go to like locals and have fun with your friends and stuff like that. I'm giving you a template pretty much. Look at my deck, see what you like, see what you don't like, change it up for whatever you think works for you. Or you could build this. I mean, if you're looking to have fun, I've had a lot of fun with this deck, so maybe you'll enjoy it. If you don't want the explanation of why I put in here what I did and why I'm playing what I am, then you could just look down at the description below and I'll leave the deck profile down there. If you do want a little bit more of an understanding of this deck and how it works, then watch the video and I explain it as I go along. So let's get to it. First, we run King of the Skull Servants, so this is your boss monster. So the main thing with him is that he gains 1,000 attack for each Skull Servant in your graveyard. This guy can become as beefy as, I believe it's 13,000 attack with the deck build that I have. He does have protection against being destroyed by battle, so if he is destroyed by battle, you can banish one of the Skull Servants in your graveyard and resummon him. But he can be targeted by effects, there's nothing stopping that. But there is a little bit of a tech that I'll show you that helps out with that. Now, the most simplistic card in the whole deck, we're running 3 Skull Servants, really just meant for fodder for Wightprince, which I'll show you in a bit, and meant to beef this guy up, 1,000 attack for each one. So, 3,000 attack just by getting rid of these guys and sending them to the graveyard. Now, this is the heart of the deck. We run 3 Wightprincess, 3 Wightprince, and 3 the Lady In Wight. Now, they all work together to beef this guy up. So let me explain. Wightprincess, when she's normal summoned or special summoned, lets you send a Wightprince to the graveyard. When Wightprince is sent to the graveyard, you can also send a Lady In Wight and a Skull Servant to the graveyard with him. So that's adding... I accidentally picked up him. That adds 3,000 attack right off the bat with her effect. And then she has a secondary effect. You can send her to the graveyard from the field or your hand, so she works as a hand trap too, to reduce the attack of all the monsters on the field by 300 times their level. So you can come up with pretty good ideas on how you can use that combo, where if you get rid of if you do it twice, where you send Wightprince to the graveyard, so if she's sent to the graveyard and you happen to summon her again, or if you have another one that you're going to summon next turn, and you're able to get 6 of those Skull Servants in your graveyard, you can also pop her from the field and she'll add another 1,000 to your King of the Skull Servants. And she also makes it a little bit easier to OTK, because if your opponent does, or not OTK, because it wouldn't be... it would be OTK, not FTK, because most likely it won't be in your first turn. But she makes it a little bit easier because most likely your opponent's going to have high level and high rank. It also affects ranks. So high level and high ranking monsters. So it'll really depreciate their attack. And since it also affects your field, keep that in mind. And since he only has 1 star, he would only be losing 300 attack. Wightprince also has a secondary effect. You can get rid of him with 2 other Skull Servants from your graveyard, banish them, and you could summon a King of the Skull Servants from your deck. Now keep in mind, by doing that, that would be later in the game, where you pretty much send all your Wightprince or Wightprincess and Lady In Wight to the graveyard, and your King of the Skull Servants, if you have one on the field, happen to die, and you're looking to get that second one to just smash into your opponent, because you are getting rid of 3,000 attack when you use his secondary effect, because you're banishing 3 of the Skull Servants, and that can be a big hit to take, especially if you don't have that graveyard built up yet. But that's also why we run Lightsworns in this deck. Now the Lady In Wight, There's 3 of her. I put one of her in here somewhere, I think. Where is she? Where are you, Lady in Wight? What did I do with her? Oh, there she goes. So, the Lady in Wight, like I mentioned earlier, King of the Skull Servants doesn't have anything that stops him from being destroyed by effects. That's what the Lady in Wight is for. So she can be used in the graveyard to give him an extra 1,000 attack for each one, or when she's on the field, level 3 or lower type zombie monsters you control, except her, cannot be destroyed by battle and are unaffected by the effects of spells and traps. So if you have him on the field and you have her on the field, your opponent's now forced to get rid of her because he can't target, he can't destroy King of the Skull Servants. And if for some reason, let's say you only have a few monsters in your graveyard, and your opponent does happen to have a monster that can get over him, you could bring him back with his own effect. But if he's real big, most likely your opponent isn't going to be able to just beat into him. He's going to have to use the effect of something, and this will absorb that. Because if it's a target, then your opponent's going to have to target this first. Your opponent's going to have to get rid of this first before they can get rid of this. So it's a neat little combo to add an extra barrier to King of the Skull Servants, but sometimes you won't even have to go into that. You would prefer to just have her in the graveyard and get that extra 1,000 attack. So now we run 2 Mezukis and 1 Gozuki. You could realistically make it 3 Mezukis, but I run it this way just because I kind of like what Gozuki does. So Mezuki, you guys already know, when he's in the graveyard, you can get rid of him and special summon a zombie type monster from your graveyard. Keep in mind, like I said, we do run Lightsworns, so these cards are constantly going to be getting milled, and hopefully your Mezuki will end up in your graveyard and you'll be able to summon something. Because if he's in your graveyard and you get rid of him to special summon a Wightprincess, her effect kicks in. So if you use her effect the last turn and she happened to get killed, or you used her effect to send her to the graveyard, and your Mezuki happens to get milled or is in your graveyard already, you can bring her back out and use her effect again, and send another Wightprince and Lady in Wight to the graveyard. Yeah, so that's a cool little combo there. And Gozuki, what I like about Gozuki is during your main phase, you can send 1 zombie type monster from your deck to the graveyard. So you can use his effect to send a Mezuki if you want to bring something back, or you can send like a Wightprince to the graveyard to be able to send 2 more Skull Servants to build up that attack for your King of the Skull Servants. And then he has a secondary effect, which you probably aren't going to use as much. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish 1 zombie type monster from your graveyard, except himself, and special summon 1 zombie type monster from your hand. So he does give you the ability to special summon again from your hand, but it's really that first effect it's saucy. It's pretty good. Okay, so this is a whole nother tech that we kind of run in the deck. So even though this is Skull Servant Lightsworns, we do run like a Plaguespreader type engine in here. So Plaguespreader, the really cool thing with him is that if he does get milled into the graveyard by your Lightsworns, you just get 1 card in your hand, put it on top of your deck, and you can bring him back. So if you happen to have like a Gozuki out, or another Lightsworn, and he happens to get milled, you can just bring him back, and now you can synchro off of him, which is pretty sweet. Or if you use him to synchro, you could, and you haven't used his effect to bring him back yet, you could bring him back in and synchro into something larger. So pretty good. So now we're going to get into the Lightsworn engine that's in here. Let's move that to the side. All right, so besides Plaguespreader Zombie being a tuner, we run another tuner in here, which is Raiden, Hand of the Lightsworn, or Raiden, Hand of the Lightsworn, whatever you want to call him. Now, he's the best one to get out for this deck, just because he lets you mill 2 cards in the beginning of your turn, and then another 2 at the end of your turn. But you can also synchro off of him, since he is a tuner, which is pretty good. He has an effect where if you happen to mill a Lightsworn, he gains 200 attack, but that doesn't really matter. That's not what you're using him for. Now, Lumina, like I said, these Lightsworns are mainly just to mill, but Lumina, once per turn, she lets you discard a card and then target a level 4 or lower Lightsworn from your graveyard and special summon it. So if your Raiden did end up in the graveyard, You can always summon her, discard a card if you happen to have a Wightprince in your hand. Perfect, because you're sending him to the graveyard. Now his effect pops off. And you can resummon like a Raiden and, you know, start your whole mill again. And during the end phase, she mills 3 more cards, which is sweet. And then Lyla, she works like the MST for the deck. When you summon her, you can put her. You can pop one of your opponent's back row, and then she goes in defense mode. And then at the end of the turn, you send the top 3 cards from your deck to the graveyard. And you could, if she doesn't get destroyed, she doesn't have a big booty. She's only 200. But if for some reason she doesn't get destroyed, the next turn you could always put her back in attack and do it again and destroy another back row, which is pretty sweet. Let's fix that up a little bit. All right, so now we run one Mathematician. So Mathematician, you can run 2, you can run 3. Some people love Mathematician. I was running him at 2 for a pretty long time. I decided to run him at 1 just for now, just kind of test out some other tech and stuff like that. But he's a really good card, especially in this deck. So when this card is normal summoned, you can send 1 level 4 or lower monster from your deck to the graveyard, and when this card is destroyed by battle and sends to the graveyard, you draw 1 card. So this card's going to get destroyed when he's on the field. But he's also very useful because you could use him to send a card like Plaguespreader Zombie to the graveyard, and now you can special summon him and synchro off of that. Or you could send like you could send your Mezuki, and now you can special summon a zombie type monster from your graveyard that you might want on your field. Or you could even send, again, Wightprince, and his effect pops off. So a pretty good card to run, and then when he gets destroyed, you get that +1, which is really good. We run, I don't know why I have such a hard time saying run today. We run 1 Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of Chaos. We have light and dark monsters in this deck, and he's extremely powerful, so why not? He is one of the more expensive cards, though. He is right now going for like $6 or $7, I think. I think that's the cheapest variant of him is going for like $6 or $7. So you could take this out and make the deck even a little bit cheaper. The deck will be closer to $25, $30 than $35, $40, but he's a good card. 1 Chaos Sorcerer just because. I mean, you could take this out and put in like another Envoy or another card, but he's just cool because he lets you remove 1 face-up monster in the field from play. So he lets you completely get rid of something. Not just send it to the graveyard, but banish it. So that's it for the monsters. Now we're going to get into the magic and traps. So I run 2 level limit area B. So this is one of those things that I was telling you that I built this deck a little bit to delay the game. So what this does is all face-up level 4 or higher monsters on the field are changed to defense position, and they remain there. So this is a continuous spell card. It lets you, unless your opponent can pop this, unless they have like an MST or a Twin Twister or something, and if this stays on the field, it can really delay the game for you. Especially with today's meta, with the decks that people are running, they may not have that MST or that Twin Twister in their deck. They might have to side for it or something like that. It would force them to go into something like Tornado Dragon or another card that might be able to get rid of it. And that disruption really is what's helpful. So level limit area B delays the game. I like it. That's why I run 2 of them, just in case that first one gets destroyed. You got that second one. All right, now we run Opti-Camouflage Armour. So let's say you are able to get your where is he? Where is he at? I can't find him, maybe because I was doing it backwards. Let's see. Where are you, King of the Skull Servants? There we go. So let's say you are able to get your King of the Skull Servants really big. You know, 10,000 attack. But your opponent already has a field. And they have like 4 monsters in defense. Sorry about that. I was choking up a little bit. So yeah, if your opponent has a board, it's going to take you a while to bash into each one of them. And by the time you're done trying to take out their board, your opponent might have already taken him out. So Opti-Camouflage lets you attack your opponent directly. So if you do make him huge, and you don't want to have to bother with your opponent's board, equip him with Opti-Camouflage Armour, attack directly, game over. It's so good that I started choking up. No, that's not true. I'm just not very smart and I was choking on my spit. Alright, so we want to run 1 Lightning Vortex because we're broke and we don't have money for Raigeki. Or even though like There probably isn't going to be a monster that you can't get over with King of the Skull Servants, but it's one of those things that, again, when your opponent builds a board, it kind of lets you delay it a little bit if you're able to kind of put them back at step 1, and unless you discard 1 card. So if you do happen to have a Wightprince in your hand, it can work out, or if you happen to have drawn into a Mezuki, it works out. And then Follish Burial, you send 1 monster from your deck to the graveyard. So you can use this a million different ways with this deck. You can send anything really, and you could go off on different combos with that. We will run 1 charge of the Light Brigade just because we run Lightsworns, and it lets you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. So you want that milling ability. And then it lets you add a level 4 or lower Lightsworn monster from your deck to your hand. So you can add like that. If your opponent has back row, you can add the Lightsworn that lets you pop the back row. If you want a synchro, you can get Raiden, whatever his name is. Add him to your hand. 1 for 1, just in case you have been able to send a bunch of monsters to the graveyard, but you haven't been able to draw into your King of the Skull Servants. 1 for 1 lets you bring him out. Plus, you get to send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard. So again, you're able to send, if you happen to have drawn into something, it lets you send it to the graveyard and use it for something else. Book of Life. Now, Book of Life, you special summon a zombie type monster from your graveyard, and remove 1 monster from your opponent's graveyard from play. Now, you could replace this with like Monster Reborn and stuff like that, or you could even add Monster Reborn, so now you have 2 cards that could bring something back. I just run Book of Life. It's cheap and it's really useful for this deck. You're never really going to be bringing back the Lightsworns. If you're going to be bringing anything back, it's going to be one of the zombies. A Dark Hole, again, something that can delay the game a bit. If your opponent goes first and starts building a board, you can get rid of it with Dark Hole. And 2 Phoenix Wind Blast. Now, why do I run this? Now, you could run like Mirror Force and other cards like that, or some other tech, but the reason I run this is because although it targets a monster, it doesn't destroy it. So a lot of cards nowadays, you guys know, it can't be targeted and destroyed. It can't be targeted and destroyed. Well, this isn't destroyed. It targets it and it puts it at the top of the deck. So it kind of, you can get something that your opponent has, put it on the top of the deck, and hope that they can't meet the criteria to resummon it next turn, or you're pretty much wasting one of their draws because they're drawing the same card that they already had. So it's a useful card. I like it. You guys can take it out, but I like using that card. Okay, so now to go into the extra deck. Now, because we run Plaguespreader Zombie, we are running 3 of these 3 cards here that all use Plaguespreader Zombie. Now, out of all of them, the least useful one is Doomkaiser. You can get rid of this card. You don't need it. It's only useful, really, if your opponent has zombies in their deck, too. And most likely they're not. I just run it because why not? But you could take this out for, like, another Castell, or really whatever you want. Or a Lynx, if you want to try to link off this deck, but I'll explain that in a little bit. Now, Archfiend Zombie Skull, he's really good. So zombie monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects when he's on the field, so that's really good. So if you are able to summon this guy and you do bring out your King of the Skull Servants, then you're also adding that barrier. And he's even harder to get over than the Lady In Wight. He has 2,500 attack, so he has the same attack as Summon Skull. And if you like Summon Skull and you like the old Yu-Gi-Oh cards from the anime and all that, he kind of he's pretty much Summon Skull, but with an effect. So cool. And Revive King Hades. So the cool thing about him is that when a zombie monster you control destroys an opponent's monster, their effects are negated. So negate the effects or of effect monsters destroyed in battle by zombie type monsters you control. So if your opponent does depend on using effects on monsters being destroyed and stuff like that, this pretty much negates that. He's not hard to bring out. He's 6 stars. So you just need one of the 4-star monsters that you have that's a non-tuner zombie type monster, and Plaguespreader Zombie. Now to go out of Plaguespreader Zombie, we have Brionic, Armades, and Ally of Justice, Catastor. So the cool thing with Brionic is that you're going to have a ton of cards in your graveyard. So you can discard any number of the cards in your graveyard, and you could target the same number of cards your opponent has on the field and return those cards to the hand. So another awesome effect because it doesn't destroy. It returns them to your hand. So if you do have your King of the Skull Servants real nice and big, but for some reason you can't go get over your opponent's board or something like that, or you just want to make sure that before you summon your King of the Skull Servants, that your opponent isn't going to play something to stop you, summon this guy. And if your opponent is able to get rid of him, then, you know, it is what it is, but his effect is too good to pass up on this deck. At least I think so. Armity, so if this card attacks or is attacked, your opponent cannot activate card effects or effects until the end of the damage step. So when you attack with him, no effects can be activated. Which is also really useful, especially in today's meta with all the effects that are being used during the battle phase and all that kind of stuff. Not that this is a meta-relevant deck, but hey, why not? Ally Justice Catastor, yeah. So the cool thing with him is that at the start of the damage step, if this card battles a non-dark monster, destroy that monster. So if your opponent has a bigger monster that you just can't get over at the moment, that's really messing up your board and isn't allowing you to go into your King of the Skull Servants or whatever, summon him, attack into it, and it's gonna get destroyed, even if it has more attack. Spicy. Stardust Dragon, just to stop effects and stuff like that. You guys know what that does. That's an old card. And a lot of these cards are actually really old cards, but I'm not getting into Stardust. Black Rose Dragon, just to wipe both boards if you feel like it. If you have no choice, you go ahead and you wipe the whole board. And run the Utopia engine. Now you guys will notice that I'm missing Prime or another one of the Utopias. I lost him. I don't know where he's at. I haven't had a chance to buy him, but that's why you notice the extra deck's at 14 instead of 15. But we run this engine just in case, even though your King of the Skull Servants is gonna get huge, this lets you just go into something else just in case. Castel, pop something. You guys know how that goes. Dark Rebellion, in case your opponent has something you just can't get over yet, half its attack, gains the attack, bam, smash into it. Ghost Trick Alucard and Ghost Trick Dullahan, I just run these for fun. You guys can check these out. I'm not going to go into what these cards do because I always forget, but you guys can run either one of these. But yeah, honestly I would probably take the cards out. I don't think I've ever really gone into I've definitely never really gone into Dullahan because you need 2 level 1 monsters, and I've just never really had the opportunity. But just run them just to take space in the extra deck, and they're cheap. So, and then 1 Decode Talker, just to have a links. This is look, I'm gonna be real with you guys, 100%. This is an old deck, an old style deck. Even though it has some newer cards in it that like the White Mares and all that, they're a little bit newer. This card isn't. This deck wasn't built for the Lynx era, really. And you're never gonna have the field to really just be able to get rid of stuff to start Link summoning, because you're only going to be able to get something, like you'll be able to get Decode Talker out maybe, and then that's it, because you're never going to have that extensive of a board. Now you could run something in here like Link Karibo that's gone down in price since it was reprinted and all that, but I just kind of stay away from the links in this thing. Like if you're able, if you get something like Decode Talker out, or you are able to get something like Link Karibo out, you might be able to also go into one of the synchros. But that's really a tech that you guys can look into if you want to do it. But this is just the deck I decided to build. Alright guys, well thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the deck profile, let me know below. If you didn't enjoy it, let me know why. Any feedback's appreciated. If you guys want another specific deck profile, let me know. I try to do these deck profiles with my own cards, my own decks, but I could also go on like YGO Pro and like build decks on there and stuff like that, maybe a little bit more expensive. I tend to concentrate on budget stuff, but hey, that's just me. Alright guys, well thanks for watching. Take care.